Senate backs military reinforcement in Northeast.
On the 16th of May 2025, Kulda community in Garha ward of Hong local government was attacked. 16 people were killed.
Nigeria Police Force gets new armored vehicles.
We are going to hand over them to the Nigerian Police Force to enhance their security strength.
APC North Central backs Tinubu for second term.
In furtherance of this conviction, we wholeheartedly endorse Mr. President to contest a second term in the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine agribusiness policy.
The National Agribusiness Policy Mechanism, NAPM, is designed to improve agricultural productivity, stabilize food prices, and drive economic growth.
Now, this policy aims to transform the agricultural sector through data-driven policies and public-private partnership, in addition to the Green Imperative Project, GIP.
Yeah, you're right, Jumai. The NAPM initiative will serve as a unifying platform for agricultural policies at all levels of government, using real-time data analysis to align planning, implementation, and outcomes across the sector.
Absolutely, and it will further seek to establish food prices by addressing issues like high flood inflation and lagging agricultural yields, in addition to aligning with government commitment to economic diversification by strengthening the agricultural sector.
It is also expected, the expected benefits of the policy include economic growth and diversification, job creation in the agricultural sector, modernization of farming practices, and enhanced collaboration between government and the private sector.
You know, agricultural policies is described as a set of laws relating to domestic agriculture and imports of foreign agricultural products.
Indeed, government usually implement agricultural policies with the goal of achieving a specific outcome in the domestic agricultural product market, and therefore expectations are high on this latest initiative. I am Ademola Adeoye. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Indeed, expectations are high. And I'm Juma Yusuf. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're reaching live on the network service of the NTA. Shortly, we'll join Dennis Adeguloye for the morning news. Much later, our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okolo Ubaja, will join us. Now, Dennis, what's happening in the news this morning? What's new?
I'm about to tell the whole country good morning, Jume, and good morning, Ademola. Here is the news. The security situation in the Northeast took center stage at the Senate as they backed military reinforcements to tackle insurgency and strengthen the country's military presence in the region. The lawmakers' commendation of the gallantry of Nigerian security personnel also came to the fore as they urged sustained efforts to tackle insurgency in the Northeast, including the establishment of a military base in Hong local government area of Adamawa State.
On the 16th of May 2025, Kulda community in Garha ward of Hong local government was attacked. 16 people were killed. 90% of the houses, including place of worship, were burned down. People in the affected areas no longer go to farms.
And as the Senate pushes for enhanced security measures, the federal government is also taking steps to bolster the Nigeria Police Force capabilities. Minister of Police Affairs Ibrahim Gaidam inspected 7 brand new armored personnel carriers, marking a significant step towards modernizing the force. This move reflects the federal government's commitment to strengthening internal security and repositioning the police through strategic investments in operational assets and logistics.
These APCs you are seeing now, We bought them from our budgetary allocation of the ministry. We are going to hand over them to the Nigerian Police Force to enhance their security strength so that they can perform better. They are supposed to use this professionally to combat insecurity in the country.
On the political scene, the APC North Central stakeholders have endorsed President Bola Tinubu for a second term. Stakeholders across the 6 states of the North Central geopolitical zone on the platform of the governing All Progressives Congress have asked the president to recontest for another term in view of his monumental achievements within his first 2 years. The resolution was reached in a communique drawn at the end of its second APC stakeholders meeting and attended by heavyweights of the party's extraction in the zone.
In furtherance of this conviction, we wholeheartedly endorse Mr. President to contest a second term in the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, term 2027, in order to consolidate the gains of his reforms and bring to fruition all what we have gained so far.
The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board is taking steps to ensure that candidates who missed the recent UTME get a second chance. JAM is set to conduct a mop-up examination for candidates who missed the 2025 UTME. JAM Registrar Professor Ishak Oloide has assured stakeholders of the board's commitment to integrity, equity and fairness in the conduct of its examinations.
Once JAM conducts its UTME late April, from May, WASC starts, and it goes on till that's SSE for WAEC, and immediately NECO starts till July. Immediately NAPTEP follows. This same set of students are the one taking all these examinations. So once you miss your time, it will be difficult. We have also decided that even those who missed the earlier initial exam, who are absent, we will extend this opportunity to them to also receive.
In a generous gesture, First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has donated 100 million naira to the Arts Education Initiative. The First Lady announced the donation at a charity gala dinner organized by spouses of heads of mission in Nigeria in aid of the 5 Cowries Arts Education Initiative. Applauding the spouses of heads of mission for actively serving and empowering the most vulnerable in society, the First Lady noted that it takes such interventions to make lasting impacts in critical sectors in the society.
From renovating schools and assisting hospitals to support small businesses, your contributions are making a lasting impact in our communities. Therefore, you are no longer just an unofficial assignment in our country, but worthy partners in progress. I say thank you. I also applaud the vision and dedication behind the 5 Cowries Arts Education Initiative. Whether through financial donations, advocacy, or partnerships, your support will help unlock the creativity, talent, and potential of countless Nigerian children who deserve the opportunity to thrive and succeed.
And those are the news highlights at this time. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Ademola and Jume after these messages. Stay with us.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social-economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, 1 person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, 1 person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Does your toothpaste give you complete fresh protection? New Close-Up Toothpaste Complete Fresh Protection takes care of your 5 important oral care needs. It gives you strong teeth, prevents tooth holes, cleans deeply, fights bacteria, and gives you fresh breath. Complete fresh protection from Close-Up.
We're live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge. My people, today now, I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Epic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamut of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space, some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000 NIN àti káàdì láti lọ gbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀, mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀, mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà níbẹ̀. A sì fi yòókù ṣe ọrọ̀ ajé pé ká tó máa rí dé bá. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. It's now time for newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer Chukudi Okolubaja is seated here in the studio. Good morning, Chuks.
Good morning, Juma. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Debo, you must be wondering why I'm smiling from ear to ear. I met a soulmate out there. Those who respect the soil. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Chukudi the farmer. So let's quickly go to the papers. I have the Blueprint newspaper here, and above the masthead, Blueprint newspaper. Above the masthead, no lady on trial for converting to Christianity in Zamfara. That's coming from the governor's aide. You find the details on page 15. Below the masthead, 2025 UTME glitches, why I won't bow to resignation pressure. That's coming from Professor Ishaq Oluyede. Details on page 7. TerraVest, local investors key to attracting foreign investments. That's coming from Dangote. And Chile unveils squad for Unity Cup, Russia friendly. That's in our sports segment. And the headlines in the Blueprint newspaper: Wike's 85% 2024 budget implementation impressive. It's coming from the Senate. With riders, Minister commits 85% of 1.78 trillion 2025 appropriation bill to abandoned projects. You find the details on page 8. By the side piece of the picture story, Benue, NAS, APC caucus, Osun PDP senators endorse Tinubu for 2027. And we have Boko Haram collaborators among politicians, soldiers. That's coming from the Borno State Governor, Babagana Umara Zulum. Ms. Ryder says, let's remove politics, end this madness in 6 months. Senate urges intensified military action. At the bottom plate of the Blueprint, 23 years after Ekiti orders community to elect monarch. After Ekiti orders community to elect monarch in 21 days. Find details on page 14. Over 77% of pilgrims are lifted for 2025 Hajj. That's coming from Nakon. 5 bag 1 month jail for letting goats destroy government plans in Kano. Details on page 15. And cult-related violence deprives Edo of $1 billion investment annually. That's coming from Ekwegbolo, the governor of the state. And let's quickly go to the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership newspaper says, and below the masthead, Cut interest rate now, manufacturers beg CBN. Find the details on page 7. And UBA named Nigeria's strongest brand, 13th in global ranking. Find the details on page 27. At the side piece of the picture story, Nakon airlifts 33,689 pilgrims to Saudi Arabia. Coup rumors cause anxiety in Cote d'Ivoire. Details on page 15. Wiki defends 1.78 trillion FCT 2025 budget before National Assembly. And Naira gains 8.23 Naira after CBN interest rate hold. I think that's about what I have. And the headlines also in the leadership newspaper is terrorist informants, outcry over soldiers, politicians' involvement. CSOs, security experts want bad eggs flushed out, say information leak emboldening terrorists. Mr. Demola?
Yeah, thank you. Chooks, let's now go to the newspaper we can trust, Daily Trust.
One of the editors. How can we gauge the trust? Go on, please.
Now listen to it. Dangote to federal government, focus on local investors. Details of that story can be found on page 12. Manufacturers LCCI demand interest rate reduction. Details of that story can be found on page 24. Showdown, shadow government. Court orders DSS to serve Utomi, begins hearing June 25th. Then the major headline reads 2027 ADC as new bride. Just the black strip there. Politicians, soldiers among Boko Haram informants. Zulum. That story can be found on page 6. Wike raises alarm over FCT security health sector. Details on page 29. Reps to raise panel over abandoned Barrow port. The details of that story can be found on page 23. Spelling competition exposes poor standard in FCT schools. Details on page 20.
And we have the Daily Times, and above the masthead, NAFDAC, FCC, PC, others urged to halt chemical ripening of fruits. And the headlines, I've already read it. Wike defends 1.78 trillion FCT budget. And at the bottom plate of the Daily Times, Tinubu, food security, regional inclusion crucial for national stability. And Wike's political rise unstoppable, aid blasts Sam Ego. And mandatory voting bills threatens democracy. That's coming from Global Rights. Mr. Chukudi?
Let me quickly talk about Wike and the budget defense. He raises alarm over FCT security as well as health. And I say he's talking the way he should talk. No part of Nigeria is inferior to another. But the truth is that some population densities attract more sensitivity. If you say that kidnap happened in my village the way it did, just 2 weeks ago when some people on medical outreach got kidnapped in my place, and eventually, eventually they said they paid 11 million. They were asking for 20 million. And look at the cheekiness of it. When they asked him to send for people who are going to bring the money, and he said his brother should bring the money, he said, "Okay, you be mumu. What if we carry your brother, join you, the money can go 30 million. Just send one man where they drink it for inside the village there so that the value does not attract us." Imagine where they've taken it. Imagine. But going back to
Wike, it has not become a business.
It's become a big industry. What did Zulum say?
Yeah.
Politicians and soldiers among Boko Haram informants.
Yeah, I saw a video yesterday of a repentant Boko Haram who was recruited into the army. He was caught with live bullets. He wanted to take it to insurgents in the bush or forest, they call it. But one thing about Borno State, it's, I don't understand. The moment Zulum says the camps should be closed, you should relocate your homeland, it starts all over again.
Because people are
It's like they don't want to leave the camps.
People are sabotaging it.
Yes.
Somebody's out there, a fifth columnist, is sponsoring and manipulating there for personal gain.
We call them shadow backers.
That's the point.
Making lots of money
So
from
it's
this.
a very complicated situation. But going back to Wike, he raises alarm over health. And that is very, very important. I want to raise an alarm. I hope it's not too late. When I was training some health correspondents about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, one of the doctors, resource person, said the Saudis are coming to take 5,000 doctors
and nurses.
1.5 weeks ago. I hope they did not succeed. It's an emergency, but we don't seem to know or understand or have the will to handle what is happening. Nobody wants to spread panic, but they're taking it. And I now go to Wike. Do for us, our doctors and nurses, what you did for judiciary people. Make their working conditions attractive so that we can retain them a bit. The Jakba syndrome is too much. I know what I'm talking about. Quickly, on the continent, cool rumors in Ivory Coast. I am one of those who go on social media to talk about the glamorization of Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso's regime or whatever. Somebody is trying to make the coup attractive in the West African sub-region. If sub-regional leaders don't know this, it's a pity.
Yeah.
They are glamorizing it to make it the in thing, and by the time it takes hold, we are all in trouble.
Yeah. That's
what's happening. Even we see AI productions and all that, all about Ibrahim Traore.
Even musicians, American musicians
Something
singing
is
songs.
happening, and West African leaders should get on their toes about it. That's why I'm going to stop that. Then, please quickly, we have mentioned
ADC as new bride, 2027.
I don't know. I don't talk about politicians. He's a man of many woes. That's what he is, a politician. You never get to know about. But let me talk from the point of view of factuality, fairness, accuracy, objectivity, and balance, the parameters of journalism. We are there to say how things are. And I dare say that the way things are going in the PDP camp, Social Democratic Party camp, now ADC camp, somebody is giving somebody a head start towards 2027.
I just feel that
I am talking, it's my personal analysis. I don't want to go beyond that.
Yes, we know
so
it's all about politics, but at this moment in our nation's history, when people are dying, people are killed every day, people are kidnapped, murdered, I feel they should just tone down this endorsement thing from politicians.
Yeah,
that's my personal opinion.
I am sorry, but it's not just kidnapping that has become an industry. Politics was the first industry.
Yes, first industry. So people are hurting, people are crying.
Senator Mike Ajebo asked me something. I don't think chairman is going to get annoyed with me for saying this. He said, Chukudi, when you get into politics, and just in case things don't go quite well, if you don't have a business to return to, you are a politician that is not in good taste for the country. Beyond politics, what can you boast of? If you keep on having that kind of politicians, you're going to continue to be in trouble. Because for them, politics has now become a business. That's not how it should be.
It's supposed to be you're just a part-time.
Exactly. Now we're making pilgrimages to their places. When I see a journalist that is hobnobbing with a politician, I tell him, you can't handle factuality, fairness, accuracy, and objectivity properly anymore. You're not to hobnob with a politician. I'm not saying you're no longer going to be his friend. If he was your classmate, we're not going to stop that. But there is such a thing as social distancing from anybody you think will bring a blemish into reputation and character.
As a journalist.
That's journalism. They say we are old-fashioned when we say this.
No old-fashioned, right?
It's really unfortunate. The ADC, there's this Patutomi DSS thing you mentioned. I think is the government is trying to put a lid on something that could go haywire. Otherwise, the question I asked the other time was, this is not the parliamentary system, so how could a shadow government actually work? When you have a shadow secretary say something on the floor of the British Parliament, Keir Starmer and his team wake up to reality.
Yes.
You understand? Badenoch, Kemi said something because the shadowness of their participation in politics in their climb is actually a real headache for those in government.
It's a real headache, and it's always good because they're always ready to take, if they win elections.
Oh, sure.
Already they have an established, system. They're always ready,
they are waiting on the wings to cash in on your mistakes.
Yes.
That's how theirs work.
And
but I think in Nigeria,
they give check and balance.
I think in Nigeria, what actually happens is that you talk like Peter Obi, you talk like Atiku.
What we have in Nigeria is opposition.
Opposition, that's it.
That's all we have.
So I think they'll sort, they'll sort all that out.
They'll sort it out.
They're just managing the situation so that something does not happen.
And JAMB, I like what JAMB is doing, receipting for those who missed.
I wrote 3 names here.
Yeah.
My stars, NDLEA chairman. Who's that? Marwa, that's him. Zulum Babagana.
Zulu.
Then Ishak Oloyede. I'm sorry, I had to put out something on Facebook in defense of Ishak. Homer, sometimes not. When I see people who are looking for the faultless or perfect human being, I know they're engaging in a wild goose chase. Such a person does not exist. The man apologized and took action to rectify. They said, what of the lady who committed suicide? I said, well, maybe a mental case was somewhere, because I don't know why Jumai will go and take poison, because NTA has not paid salaries. Please, I'm not saying they didn't pay salaries.
Like it is
you
said.
You should be able to handle the crisis of life.
It is said that it is easy to pull a thorn out of someone else's skin.
Yes.
That is what is happening with this Ishak issue.
Thank you. Let's be real. The man gave 6 billion naira in 2022 or thereabout to government. We didn't know that JAMB could make money. Please.
Okay.
Please, I didn't say NTA does not pay salaries. I'm just drawing an analogy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
We'll take a break now. The conversation will kickstart after the break. Stay with us.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
At
NTA Television College Jos, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer Management.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spread the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The federal government of Nigeria wants vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables, and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our guest for our conversation on agribusiness policy mechanism, let's take this background report by Ibrahim Dan Hamidu.
In every seed lies a silent ambition to grow, to feed, and to prosper. Across Nigeria, agriculture has always held promise. But today, it must do more. Not just feed the nation, but fuel the economy. This is the mission of agribusiness policy by the President's initiatives. Agribusiness means seeing farming not as a way of life, but as a value chain, a full-circle economy. From production to processing, packaging to profit, it requires bold policy and even bolder execution. Nigeria's recent policies aim to transform agriculture from a development sector into a business sector. Strategies now focus on access to finance, mechanization, rural infrastructure, irrigation, and linking farmers to national and global markets. But beyond paperwork and promises, the fields await action. For agribusiness to thrive, it must be bankable, predictable, and scalable. That means stable policies, strong extension services, post-harvest systems, and a private sector trust. Technology is also rewriting the rules. Agri-tech is helping bridge old gaps, connecting producers to prices, weather to timing, and local knowledge to global best practice. Experts agree agribusiness is no longer just about planting maize or harvesting yam. It's about input to output optimization. It's about vertical integration, commodity mapping, and market intelligence. It's about building an ecosystem in Nigeria where soil meets science and policy meets prosperity. Because in the grand scheme of nations, those who can feed themselves and others hold the true power of the future. Value chain experts are on standby here in the studio to discuss how these policies can truly transform Nigeria's agriculture into agribusiness, and what it will take to make the sector bankable, investable, and globally competitive.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim Hamidu, for that background report. And we have our guests seated here in the studio to discuss the Agri Policy Initiative. And we have first, let me introduce Professor Abagambo, Department of Crop Production, University of Maiduguri. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jumai.
At least you're not on Zoom today. You're live in the studio.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a great pleasure to be back home.
Thank you. And we have Dr. Emeka Okengu, Agricultural and Development Economist. Thank you so much for coming. You were here on Monday. You're here today.
Yes. Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Also in the studio is architect Kabil Ibrahim, President, Nigeria Agribusiness Group, and AFAN President. Architect Kabil Ibrahim, you're welcome once again to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, we also have a Zoom guest from Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, Professor Edna Augustine Akpan, Professor of Crop Science, Faculty of Agriculture, Akwa Ibom State University. Prof, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Good to see you.
Good morning, all.
Right, thank you so much. All right, let's just start by looking at this new initiative, this National Agricultural Policy Mechanism initiative by the government. You know, before now, we've had some other initiatives in the past, like the Agricultural Transformation Agenda. We have the Growth Enhancement Support Scheme, Anchor Borrowers Program, and so on and so forth. So tell us, what is the difference, I mean, with this new policy now, this initiative? Prof, let's start with you.
All right, thank you for having me once again.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing new is, previously, agriculture was never viewed as a business. Okay. It was a kind of traditional thing. My grandfather was a farmer, my father is a farmer, so I am also a farmer kind of thing. But this time around, agriculture is viewed as a commercially, economically viable, profitable investment venture, whereby you, as any other business, you can enter a bank, pick a loan with the intent of making profit out of it. You have your plan, you have your master plan, whatever, but then this time around, you're going in as an investment expert. Okay. And you're sure that you're going to get a profit out of it. And another thing with the agribusiness is that not all of us need to be on the farms. You know, the value chain, the input delivery, the production, main production on the farms. Then after the production, the processing, the marketing, and the distribution. There are people that deal in agricultural products, taking products from the north to the south, from the south to the north. They don't know where the farms are. So these are the kind of people that want to entail across the value chain so that it will be a real business value chain, viable, commercially viable for the country and for individuals. We want to see the impact on the farmer at the subnational. By the time you now increase the value chain, you are giving the farmers the opportunity to gain more from their products. And that is the main difference between this particular policy and all the other policies.
Okay.
Yes. So this time it's a kind of investment-driven business idea agriculture.
Investment-driven business
Investment-driven.
And opening the doors, opportunities for those who want to go into agriculture.
Definitely.
So can you tell us what are the key objectives of
the four objectives are, there are four objectives actually to it. The first one is the agricultural input delivery. That's the seed, you understand, the fertilizers, somebody can buy a tractor and he will be hiring the tractors. He need not to go to the farm. He has the drivers and everything. You go and hire his tractor. You clear your land. You pay him. He stays with his tractor. He continues servicing it. Then somebody will just be selling seeds. You understand? Another person will just be selling fertilizer. But they are not on the farms. That is the first premise. We have to take them into cognizance. Then the second one is the main production. That's where the farmers come in. They do the actual production on the farm, etc. Then after that, we need the processors. You know, there is a huge post-harvest loss. We're talking of about 45% in the horticultural sector. Every 100 mangoes, 45 is gone. Every 100 yams, 45 is gone, either through bad harvest, through bad whatever. But then we now want processors, whereby you have a small agro-allied facility that you can actually make the yam into yam flakes, into yam powder. You can get the onions at Alero, Sokoto, KB, etc. And then you now can actually stop the perishability, the high cost of perishability, and then you can actually turn it into something else. It's doable. And you don't need a very big company to do that. And the tomatoes, by the time you're traveling on this Kura, Churoma road to Kano, when you see the kind of tomatoes during the on-season, you know, they will ask you to pick it even for 100 naira. Because if you do not pick it 2 days after, it's gone. So we need these small agro-allied industries. The oranges in Boko, the mangoes all over the country now, it's mango season. Everywhere you see, you go mango. But they're not single one processing plant. So want a situation where under the agribusiness, there will be uptakers to produce. Even women, you can make a kind of mango drink. I can see in Abuja they've started. You see watermelon, beetroot, cashew, and then you see orange and pineapple. A kind of combination that women are doing. And it's going fast, really, it's going fast. So these are the kind of things we have on our mind now. To reduce the post-harvest loss, you have to bring in more people into the market. Then finally is the marketability. Let every agricultural product that is produced in Nigeria be marketable, and then it should be consumable. So we also reduce the post-harvest loss. So you now bring in marketers into the agricultural value chain. And that's the aim. Those marketers have the money. They are not on the farms. They are not into production. But then they are waiting for the products to come out, for the products for somebody to process, and all of a sudden they begin the movement of the products from where it was
it's
produced.
a collective.
Exactly. And take it to where it is needed immediately. So these are the people you see moving across the country with the trucks, etc., all over. They know where the product is needed presently, and they know where they can get that product immediately. A case study, if you're looking for maize today, Saminaka is #1 destination. So you just move there, get whatever you want, and then push it to the south where there is plenty of poultry business and people are waiting for poultry feeds. So this is the kind of thing that is in the new agricultural business, and I find it particularly interesting because for the first time it's all comprehensive.
It's all comprehensive. Thank
you.
Holistic
and also workable.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Okengo, you are agricultural and economics development analyst, and I know that you've been following, government initiatives, over the years. Just like I asked Prof, what do you think is different with this initiative compared to the previous one, from your own experience?
Okay, maybe I should not use the word follow. Maybe the right word should be participate.
Okay, you've been participating.
Professor Gambo and I had been part of that initiative at a technical level in trying to put that document together.
Okay.
And of course, you know my relationship with my elder brother, Architect Kabiru.
No.
You don't. This is our organ. So the three of us in this room have been very integral in trying to develop the back end of agriculture. And maybe I should tell you, while I was in the World Bank as National Strategic Consultant for the mining sector, one of the things that I learned clearly was the intrinsic relationship between agriculture and mining. And that's what actually pushed me more to look at agriculture more than even the mining sector. And part of the arguments that I presented in that process was to say we have retained the pro-poor thinking mode for agriculture, and this has remained the bane of creating volume that can unlock value. And this is also the major issues with one word that Professor Gambo used, which is very heavy. He said we are unseasoned. And as long as we remain unseasoned as a country, what we'll now be having is a time where you can be able to buy tomato at 100 naira and a time where you can buy it at 100,000. Yeah. Okay? And this can be mitigated by just one simple program. If you want to turn agriculture into a business, what you need to do is to build a corporation that runs as a business. What happens today in Nigeria is that agriculture, you know, the best you can get out of the best programs, all the things you have listed here, are proposals that get approvals and reports that retire millions and billions. Now, what is the right way to go if you want to build a corporation? You should be able to build a system where you have outline business cases, where you have full business cases that now have financial interrogation. Okay, where you have SWOT analysis, where you have what you call project-based funding practices that now ties outputs, okay, to failures and rewards. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So part of what I was pushing was to say we must establish what we call the AgriCorp. I pushed this idea privately with architect Kabiru and so many other people to say, until we're able to get, let me make it simple, an NMPC kind of structure for the agricultural sector, where we now have proper management of both land, capital, human resources to now begin to build these large volumes, you would be speaking about agriculture as a government-supported program. Now, we are not supporting, unfortunately, we are fully funding. Okay? And because we are fully funding, government has, I think, placed about 800 and something billion in increase the budget of agriculture. You will find out that those things are going to be put into subheads, okay, that might not have very tangible, you know, outputs, apart from reports and retirements. This is where I think, you know, the challenge is. And in trying to resolve this challenge, we must be able to, first and foremost, it's not only about the subnationals. I keep telling you that we are no longer into what Professor Gambo said, yes, is correct. We must be able to keep the traditional, you know, practices, but nobody is talking about vertical agriculture. Okay? Nobody's talking about virtual agriculture. Nobody's talking about hydroponics, aquaponics. In the COVID period, a lot of hotels were turning into farms. You have agricultural farms today that are going 20 stories up in the sky. Mm-hmm. It's happening now. And it's not happening in the so-called developed world. It is happening in the Singapores and the Malaysias, China. Okay, and the Chinas and the Koreas of this world. And this is why you go into the markets, they don't have on or off season, where you get your tomato paste or your Maggi paste or whatever, you know, you put in your soups. They are coming in containers on a daily, you know, basis. So, Demola, to answer your question directly, we must create a culture out of policy. And that culture we must create out of policy is not to speak commercialization, but to practicalize, okay, the value chain that leads to commercialization.
It's quite interesting, you know. Agriculture has developed around the world faster than we're thinking about, because we have to survive. It's one of the basic needs of man. Food is necessary. Let me bring in Architect Ibrahim into this conversation. Now, let's look at the implementation stage of this policy? It was announced in April, and I think it will start in July this year or so?
No, June. It will be launched
June,
in
okay.
June,
So it will be launched in June. So what are the strategies that will be used in the implementation of this policy?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a government person. I will not know what the
But you're on the table with them.
No, hang on. I'm coming. My predecessors in this discussion have said many things about agriculture and agribusiness. I have always been a proponent of agribusiness. I started agriculture as a poultry farmer to make money from architecture. And my concept is, if you leave people to just do the drudgery of farming to feed themselves, you will never grow. All the countries of the world who have very high income from agriculture actually do agribusiness. Agribusiness simply means adding value to what you do to get prosperity. And it has to be sustainable prosperity. Now, we have been part of the discussions towards I think there was a launch of the National Agribusiness Policy mechanism. It sprang from the Presidential Food Security Coordinating Unit activities. There, we have come to terms with that, look, government alone, and the federal government for that matter, cannot run Nigeria's agriculture. It is a matter that involves all the subnationals, and in fact agriculture takes place at the subnational level. But all the Nigerians we are talking about, in fact 70 to 80% of them, operate from those subnationals, and they are poor. And that is why you have reports that we have not seen economic growth in terms of people. Doctor has mentioned being pro-people. Being pro-people means being able to govern them, making them comfortable with your governance structure. So you must create and innovate at every time a possibility of taking people out of poverty and getting them into prosperity. So the issue of a policy for agribusiness is a very, very welcome development, and is predicated on taking advantage of all the possibilities therein, and have data that will help you to make far-reaching decisions, and get this private sector to be fully involved in it. If you just leave it to government, government itself, for instance, has no business, it does not have a farm, does not do agribusiness for its own sake. It is supposed to create the enabling environment for the private sector to really thrive. And it is 80% of economy, of every nation's economy, is private sector led. Yeah. It's only about 20% that is government. So the idea of getting this platform and getting mechanisms to be able to enhance economic growth from agriculture for Nigeria is very, very germane now, because agriculture is actually the backbone of Nigeria's economy, in truth, not just by mere proclamation. We have been talking about oil, getting revenues from oil and misusing and misapplying those revenues. People have not seen anything. We want a situation where you should be able to take a farmer or somebody who does anything to do with agriculture to a position where they can diversify and do other things in the economy. You will do this by looking at the smallholder farmer, small processor, and tying him up with the larger processor or larger player, and getting them to get a symbiotic relationship so that they have a win-win situation. For instance, if you have people who produce paddy, for instance, they farm, you should get off-takers for them that pay them two-pronged for the raw material and for the value added prosperity that comes with processing. This is what happens in so many other climates. I will give you one example. There is a place they call Germantown near Washington. They had a proliferation of dairies. So many dairy farms, about 400 of them. The United States, of course, because of experience in agriculture and all that, supported large conglomerates or even corporations. I want to borrow a doctor's word, to be able to harness all the values in milk production. What they have done is that they allowed and enabled them to create a mega structure to be able to process all the milk that they can get in that region. And all these small dairies were told, look, you can sell your milk at a premium and it will be taken from where you have it. And when we add value, you will also get equity in the value addition. So all these dairies contracted. There are only about maybe 3 that are doing a little processing. But all of them, in the mornings, in the evenings, tankers come, take the milk, deliver it to the processor. They get payment for the raw milk, and they get equity, and everybody is quite comfortable. That's why in the United States, for instance, nobody goes to the street begging for food. If you go to the Netherlands, go to even Brazil now. You know, when I was president of Poultry Association, we used to think or call Brazil a developing nation, and poor for that matter. Today we are talking about getting everything from Brazil. Everything, in fact, this government is doing, you know, from the layout from the previous administration, is going to Brazil to borrow, tractors, combined harvesters, now even livestock, and getting the Brazilian businessmen to come here and create agribusiness for us. Whereas the professors, myself, and all that should have been the ones really supported to do this thing in-house so that everybody will be happy. There will be capital flight when you encourage people to come and invest in your nation. They will take everything back to where they come from. It has happened, and you can see so many of these people here. And then when you also rely too much on what you call development partners to do anything, either to give you donations or to make investments, and it's a charity. Why, if it is so very comfortable where they are, why don't they remain there? Why are they coming here to say they will help you? Is it in their larger interest also to make you independent so that you don't buy anything from them? It is from here, you look inwards, and this kind of thing that is happening now is the biggest development that we have in Nigeria, provided that we implement it transparently. And we have zero tolerance for corruption.
Okay.
And this is all that I have to say. I don't want to, I don't think I should try to give figures and history and all that. I am a businessman.
Yeah.
I think that we should make money, and everybody should be happy, and all Nigerians should be able to afford food. And that is why we are predicating everything here on food security. Okay. Food first, then you can think outside the box. You can have so many professors who will have time to read, study, look at situations, and appraise them. Okay. But if Professor Gambo, for instance, is hungry, how will he be able to do justice to even the subject matter?
All right, thank you, Architect Kabir. Architect turned a farmer, and I'm sure you're making a lot of money farming now. All right, let's just escalate the conversation to Professor Akpan, who is a professor of crop science, Faculty of Agriculture, who is joining us via Zoom. Professor Akpan, I know you have been also listening to the conversation so far. Some of the challenges that we have faced in the past with the initiatives, in the past has always been that of implementation, just like Architect Kabir spoke about. So how will this policy mechanism ensure effective implementation? and coordination across different government tiers and stakeholders, going by past experiences?
Thank you very much. We need to consider a lot of things when it comes to agribusiness. First and foremost, we need to know and understand that agriculture is business. And for us to be able to succeed as a nation, agriculture has to be a private sector driven, but with support from the government, as it's been done in other climes. So, and we know a lot of policies on ground that government has really put to be able to see how they can move ahead with this agribusiness policy. And some of those policies, like the subsidies and some of the payments that have been done to farmers. And then we look at the agri-insurance for those that are, being affected in one form or the other because of maybe climate change. And then we also look at the market access, because we have a lot of people that have produced their products, both the crops and animal products. And then, like they had rightly other conversation members have rightly mentioned, they needed off-takers to off-take those products from where they produce to the consumers and processors. So the value chain approach is supposed to be quite apt, so that every active member of that value chain should be able to benefit from it. So one of the major things, and then like some of us that are in the institutions, higher institutions, we are looking at research and development, and not just doing those research and putting them on the shelves in the library, but being able to liaise with the government and then putting it across to them for them to know the outcomes of what the research is that we'll be carrying along, and also the results that we have gotten from them. And then from there, we'll be able to, for us to be able to do the agribusiness policy effectively, we need a steady stakeholder participation. And who are those major stakeholders? It's the farmers. And then when the farmers are get fully engaged, and then the research findings that we have, based on what we've been able to conduct in research institutes, could also be, communicated to them through extension agents too. And at the same time, those what you call a stakeholder participation, there should be a proper monitoring and evaluation process that is being put on ground to be able to follow up on the activities and then see how it could also help. And I believe that when the stakeholders are being carried along, and then there's adaptability of this new policies on agribusiness, and then proper monitoring and evaluation, as I have rightly said, then the major stakeholders, being the value chain actors, are being carried along, will be able to get to where we need to be here in Nigeria as far as agricultural business policy is concerned. Thank you.
Oh, Professor Edna, I would like to stay with you a bit there. But before I throw my question to you, please, the number for you to send your SMS and WhatsApp to join this conversation is on the screen. So you can send in your views so that we can be able to read them to the guests in the studio, and then you get your answers to your question. Professor Edna, the grassroots is the base for agriculture in Nigeria. How do you think through this policy they can be brought on board to contribute their quota to food security?
Your question again, please.
I said agriculture is at the grassroots. So how can they be brought on board, the farmers at the grassroots? How can they know about these policies, and how can they contribute to food security in Nigeria?
Well, first and foremost, we need to enlighten the farmers on the new concepts. Most of them, they're into the agribusiness itself, but they do not really know much about it, the processes involved. So they need to be sensitized properly, and the awareness needs to be created amongst the farmers, and then the farmers need to be trained and retrained, using a language that they will understand, so that they could be able to, contribute meaningfully to agricultural production and productivity in Nigeria. A lot of researches have been going on, and most often where we have the agricultural development programs, ADPs, they have a program that they normally call fortnightly trainings, FNT, every 2 weeks for farmers, where all the research findings and new findings, innovations, and technologies are being taught to the farmers in the grassroots level. And then most of the farmers that have gone into commercial agricultural production, they are being linked to, off-takers. These off-takers will off-take from the farm gate and then sell to different markets. So market access, like I rightly said, is one of the key components of agribusiness. So it is one thing to do business, another thing to be able to get access to market, to be able to market the products that you have produced. And at the same time, you also need to follow up to be sure that they are properly supported, either through, subsidies and payments, especially the farmers at the grassroots. And at the same time, we also have to look at agri-insurance in particular, because of the climate change we're having. In some of the rural areas, they are flooded and most of their crops and animals are destroyed. So they need that support. If they're not enlightened on agri-insurance, most of them will lose their means of livelihood. So one of the things we need to do in the rural climate is for us to be able to help the farmers to improve their income and means of livelihood, and then link them to available markets and sources of markets, so that at the end, most of the agricultural losses that we have, the post-harvest losses, will be reduced tremendously.
Well, thank you very much, Prof, for that, your contribution there. There is need for a proper, awareness, especially with the farmers at the grassroots concerning government initiatives. And also she talked about, the need for monitoring, proper, monitoring and evaluation, which is necessary for to drive this government initiative. Let's come to you, Prof. On Monday we talked about this inflation, going down, and we talked about the need to have stability in food prices. Now, how will this initiative address food inflation with strategies that will be employed, to stabilize, food prices, especially in the market?
Yeah, this is one of the cardinal principles of the new agribusiness plan.
Yeah.
By the time you now, like I said, process what has been produced, at least to 90%, then definitely you are making sure that the post-harvest losses are drastically reduced.
Okay.
And by reducing the post-harvest losses, it means that you are giving more people opportunity to take from what has been produced. I want to give a practical example. Mangoes, oranges at Boko, when it is produced, like I told you, the post-harvest loss is about 49% in the horticultural subsector. All the fruits, most of the fruits, 49 get lost. So what we are saying now is, if you have an off-taker that takes the oranges, he doesn't produce the oranges. The farmers in Boko do the production. He buys from them, and then he has a small processing plant. He now makes them into juices, or he dries them into what you call dried fruits, like in foreign countries, or he mixes them with other products to make another product. So that means all the oranges are now processed. So when you process everything, the next person is the marketer, which you have already identified. And the marketer is the main businessman. He doesn't care about the farm. He doesn't care about how the oranges are produced. He doesn't care about how the oranges are processed. His own is just to take up and then keep moving. He knows the areas that particular, he has done his studies. So he knows the areas where those particular products are needed. And then he now carries them as quickly as possible. Then from there also, he might also fill his trucks with other things and bring it back. So through that, the food security is going to be enhanced because the post-harvest losses are going to be drastically reduced. But then, there is something very fundamental to that, and the policy has captured it: mechanization and technology. Without these two things, all the things I'm talking about now cannot be possible. You cannot be using pestle and mortar to be making fruits, fruit juices. Really, Jumai, it's very difficult,
It's
even
difficult.
in your house, you understand? So it's just for a small scale, but now we're talking of a larger scale. So you just have to give the incentive to those people to make sure that they have the necessary machines and they also have the necessary technical know-how. That is very important. And talking about mechanization, the country is a vast country. Desert here, forest there. Low rainfall here, high rainfall there. Jumbai knows in the northern part of our state, Borno, it's about 2 months of rainfall. It's either you do your agricultural activity within the 6 months or you're out of business. Definitely 6 months. That's why we have 40 days varieties of groundnuts, 40 days varieties of other crops. We've been adapted to all this. And in most cases, we have to go out and pray a lot before the rain even falls.
Okay.
But then within the same country, you have Focados Island in Rivers State. They have 12 months of rainfall per annum within the same country. And that discrepancy and variability makes Nigeria a very great agricultural nation.
Okay. Professor Edna talked about getting the active participation of the private sector. How do you think they will ensure the success of this initiative?
Yeah, they have to, because, you know, once you talk about private sector, it's about people that are interested in getting profits after investments. And we said the policy intends to make agriculture an investment platform. So you put in your money, you do the necessary things, and you get your profit. You can go to the bank, get a loan, come and invest into it, you get your profit, and you pay back the loan. So there are plenty of private sector players in the agricultural field, even as we are talking now. People that are dealing with fertilizers, people that are looking pest and chemicals for pest control and disease control, people that are dealing with high quality hybrid seeds, etc. They are in there, private sector, even now. Go to every village. Go to every market day in every village in this country. You see those people selling chemicals, selling fertilizers, selling everything. They are there, private sector. Without any governmental support, they are doing their work and they are getting the money. During harvest, when you go, you see people who come with plenty of money, mopping up bags of beans, bags of groundnuts, etc. It's well known.
Yes, exactly. It's well known.
Yes.
We've seen it even in Maiduguri. You know, before Boko Haram, the trailers that leave Maiduguri to Central Africa, Cameroon, Chad, you know, but unfortunately, insurgency has sort of brought it down a bit. So we have some questions from our viewers. They would like you all of you to respond to. Let me start with Alhaji Garko from Karo Site, Abuja. He said, "Good morning, presenters and your guests in the studio. Agriculture is a very serious and important business all over the world. Agriculture is a business of producing food and can control food insecurity in every nation. Any nation that can feed its citizens well will have less insecurity and other forms of crimes in the society." I think it's high time to do away with manual way of farming in this 21st century. I want to ask your guests in the studio, what is making it so difficult or hard for the federal government to actualize mechanized farming in Nigeria, as it is happening in other nations in the world? Farmers in other nations are the richest people in the society. Alhaji Garko from Karo. And another one said, "Good morning to everyone in the studio. What's the government doing about storage facility? It's because most agri products are perishable, and if you go to the rural areas where these products are coming from, you will see a lot of perishable ones, and farmers lose money in this era. What is government doing about it?" That's Engineer Bello Abdul Malik from Kubwa. And Another one said, good morning, my brother Demola and sister Jume. I'm Abbas Abubakar Saad from Jalingo. Agricultural policies often offer benefits such as increased food production and job creation. However, I have two questions. He said, how can these policies be made to effectively support smallholder farmers, especially in accessing modern farming tools? I believe it's high time we take irrigation farming seriously. We shouldn't rely so heavily on the rainy season. We need year-round production, otherwise we will continue to face shortages and complain. His second question is, why did the USA, China and India do differently? What did they do differently to support their farmers in feeding their large populations? If there is, can we adapt that?
Yeah, Professor, Dr. Kengo.
Thank you very much. I will start from where Alhaji Kabiru, spoke about Brazil. Maybe it's important for us to know that Brazil is probably the biggest producer of livestock in the world today, by just simply taking a policy of one Brazilian, one cattle. And that cattle's output was now supposed to be supporting that Brazilian's, contribution to GDP. But they didn't have the people keep the cattle. They got a conglomerate that now started managing the cattle on behalf of everybody. Today, Brazil is the biggest producer of cheese. Let me not talk about blood meal. Let me not talk about leather. Okay, these are even the bigger, outputs of agriculture. Let me not talk about what they call cellular lightweight concrete, okay, which is actually produced from hoofs that are biodegradable, cow hoofs and horns. Now, if you go to India, at one time India adopted a policy, they called it the Indian Exploration Fund Limited, just like we have the National Agriculture Development Fund. And what they did was that they funded exploration in India and then defined all their resources and then started grading them vis-a-vis the investments that needed to come into it. China, as regimented as it is, every Chinese company you see coming to Nigeria has the back-end support of the Chinese government, but they come as a private sector company. So they build conglomerates around all these things and then push them, support them with a lot of patient capital. I had mentioned this to you people earlier. Patient capital means that these are capital that allows you to do your back-end, do a lot of studies, do your pestis, do your SWOT, do your feasibilities. Now, what you have in Nigeria is that the best you can get is that there's an agri loan. Somebody talked about the Anchor Borrowers Program. And how was that program being run? They come to your storage and pay you against what you have in your storage, not what you have in your farm. So what were the people who are taking the loans doing? They were going to get warehouses, going to market, and they were mopping up goods to put in the storages. Now, what that meant was a lot of the goods that were put into that storages might not have come from Nigeria.
Yep.
Because we have a lot of other places you can be able to get it. And why did this happen? Because you didn't have a conglomerate, okay, that was now holding this thing for you. Now, the question they ask is, what can we do differently? I'll tell you what it is. Because, again, you don't have a central point, you'll be very surprised that the Ministry of Agriculture has no control over forestry. Okay? And in this stead, now, a lot of the things that goes on in forestry, they don't have any input into it. And you have a lot of crops, okay, that can come out of flora, fauna, that can come out of forestry. You'll also be surprised that the Ministry of Agriculture has no relationship with the management of our dams. Okay? You also be very surprised that they have no relationship with the management of our water bodies, our marine and ecosystems. And let me tell you, Jumai, Ondo has is the longest coastal line we have in Nigeria. From Ondo, it has about 100 kilometers of land. Now, this is a country that has a shortfall of over 3 million tons of fish. and you have that water body. I think Akeredolu, when he was governor, had dredged it. And then somebody gave me that paper to do an analysis. I said to the person, please, I have looked at this, your paper. I'm not seeing any fishing program here. I'm not seeing any nets. I'm not seeing any aquaculture. So what Akeredolu had done is to dredge for canoes to carry firewood from one point to the villages and then be able to transport people on water in a country that has a lot of need, okay, for aquaculture. Hear me, Jomai, because it's important that we get it correctly.
Yes.
If you, at the last time I came here, I spoke about the ICRC. You go and do, for the ICRC, when you want to do what they call unsolicited, you have a bright idea, you take it to ICRC, a ministry supports it to them, they give you what they call a no objection, leading to an FBC that can get you to go to FEC. I can tell you on good authority because I'm involved in one. There are a lot of FEC approvals that have been done by other administrations that have not been engaged now.
Or implemented.
Not even started. Because there is no way to go. There's no central body to go. And there's no way ICRC, by right, is depositing that, FEC agreement. Usually it is implementing or the ministry that should be doing. But now that we have food security and the country has been, reshaped by Mr. President, which is very bright, creating the marine and blue economy, creating the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. What I expected, was that everybody and anybody who had a program around those sectors would have been advised to now go to do a presentation, do a report, do a status report, which is what I thought the CDCU, would have been doing. To say, if you have any project 15 years back, 10 years back, 20 years back, government is a continuum. And can I tell you, and I'm going to rest on this, there is nothing in this new policy that is not in OFNO. That is not in DIFRI. That is not in Green Revolution. That is not in NAUDA. That is not in APP. None. What you might do is that the language might sound a little different. But the intent is for the country to be food secure. So what we can do is very simple. Very, very, very simple. Be able to create a situation where people can have access, to those in government that should be able to answer questions. Today, I'm sorry to say this, if you have any friend in government, don't call that phone. Don't. I'm not talking about an officer of government. I'm talking about friends.
They won't pick. They won't pick.
Don't.
Yes, don't bother.
Don't even bother to send them. But these are people who have a responsibility. So Mr. President must make it possible, for us to have a situation where these people who are in charge of these things can be able to give him a publishable and measurable report, on programs that are doing. You have ministries today. I can discuss it if I have the time, but maybe I shouldn't. But I'm saying to you, we're talking about food security. And I dared you, and I'm going to use it as an example. I'm going to put those bags in Borono. Oga keeps talking about season. And I said to people, forget about season. It is about water.
It is about water.
The moment you can water a plant, and it has the right nutrition and soil, it will grow in the desert, which is why they have what they call desert agriculture. Please read it up. Israel, which is in the desert, in case people do not know, if you go to Israel, I was pleasantly shocked. I think they did it to capture people's imagination. I saw this tomato growing out of a rock.
Yes, rooftops.
Now, but in my curiosity, I said this magic can be happening in my time. So I went behind the rock and I saw one little tube. And what was that tube? That tube was just passing water, to a place that was now feeding. And I said, this is the magic. So if we're able to understand that the greatest challenge we have in this country is our season. The second challenge is that people in government, has to make it possible. At one time, they created a portal Okay, I don't see any response that have come out of it. Okay. There must be a system that Mr. President will create today and say, if you have a fake approval that is 20 years old, take it there.
Okay.
And then they give you a chance to be able to, support what it is that you're presented. If it is good enough, they find the right. And again, please.
Dr. Okengo, we have to pause you here because it's time for us to go for a break. Probably when we come back, you just complete your thoughts there. Stay with us. The conversation continues.
Creativity is so broad. I would say whatever it is that you're creative about, it takes a lot of practice before you become very good. So if it's something you intend to pursue, it's something you have to keep doing. You have to keep practicing. It's not going to be an overnight success, which a lot of people look for. But if it's something you're determined about, but the drawback rather, is that you need what is called staying power. While you're developing your creativity, you need to earn a living. So I know that's where the conflict usually comes in, especially with the hardship in the country and all that. But I think a lot of encouragement from the private sector to create incubator hubs. We've had some of those in tech. We need those across various sectors as well. Incubator hubs where these ideas can come in, be developed, be encouraged, be funded, and then we can expand it from there.
Content creation, while it may sometimes get a bad rap, I think it's actually very important because we have to see ourselves. We have to see ourselves living our lives. We have to show and share our stories. I think that's very important. Now, the job after that is to be able to digitize those stories into something that can provide data and insights, that can ensure that we can be able to support whole-scale industry in these spaces, to ensure that the amount of money that each content creator is getting exceeds what is currently happening for many content creators. The same content creator who lives in Nigeria will be earning less than a content creator who's living in the US or the UK or Japan. And we've got to also bridge that gap because most of that is being driven by the ability of the consumers to pay for those goods, and also the pricing that many of these platforms have. So I think this is not the job for the content creators and the young people. This is a job for people like myself in the ecosystem who can help support the right pricing, to advocate for the right policies, to support economic development for consumers who want to consume that information and that content. And even beyond content creation, we're seeing that many people are stepping in behind the camera. They are producers, editorial, they are graphic designers, they are in technology, but maybe not in front of the camera. And what we want to say is also, we need those people too. We need those stakeholders involved. And the job of many policymakers, DFIs, is to ensure that the strategic investments get there, the collaboration gets there, and we're deliberate in how we're saying we want to support innovation in our continent.
There's an age group where your brain function is at its maximum, and that's the age group we call the youth, isn't it? So we need the youth, the younger generation who have the energy, the imagination to be equipped with the proper education, the proper tools, the proper encouragement, and then take what innovation they bring out and turn it into mainstream developmental ideas. So you find a lot of things that are invented by people in school or straight out of school. We need our patent laws to work so that they can earn a living from their imagination. Once the imagination is just for a one-year festival or an event, then it's not worth it. Somebody creates something, we need to get our patent laws to work, we need to enforce them, and then the private sector can use those patents to develop things and encourage more people to be more creative. Back in the days, yes, you had to be an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor. Today we have programmers, we have AI specialists, we have people that are doing ethics on genetics. Those things didn't exist 50 years ago. So there are new areas that need to be explored. The question really, apart from the parenting, does our educational curriculum cater for what the needs of the world will be in the next generation? because our curriculum is dealing with the issues of the past. We need the government and the private sector to redo the entire educational curriculum to be forward-focused, not retroactive.
Yeah, welcome back. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And the conversation is still the National Agribusiness Policy Mechanism. And we have our guest in the studio. Before we went on break, Dr. Kengu was about to conclude his thoughts on the questions that were sent by some of our viewers. Maybe in just 1 minute, because we have...
Trigger some thoughts. What I think government should do,
yeah,
first and foremost, is not to do this as government. Okay, if government had called a corporation, every corporation that comes into this country, the first thing you do is to look at their profile. What do they show you? Exactly the kind of thing that my boss has said here. 400 people will come together and say we're an SPV, and then they answer one name. Who is managing director? Alhaji Kabiru. Now they put the pictures of the 400 farms. And he comes with his board. They say this is the biggest in the world. That is how you create the bulge. Now, what government should do with this policy, which is what I advised, when we were working on it about 2-3 years ago, when I was asked to be part of it, you say, create the Agri-Corp. Get somebody of note. Let all the whole poultry people come together. And then let them give that poultry, their poultries, to Alhaji Kabiru. It becomes Kabiru and Co. It becomes the biggest poultry in Africa. They can compete in America.
And everybody will earn money.
This is what they do in the Netherlands. I've been there. I went to Verbeek farms in Netherlands. You'll be shocked. They have a sheep. They process their chicken on the sea because they have about 10,000 poultry farmers who they give their feeds. And then, of course, you need the back end.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Okengu. Now, we have some other responses here. And this one is Enito Yekomi. He says, what are the plans to change the dynamics and remove doggery from farming operations and also ensure that the young generation are taken into farming as a business? That is one. Then this one says, Nigeria should turn back to the agriculture transformation agenda, ATA, that Akiwumi Additional brought to enhance productivity and processing. Also, when will we have these programs? The young farmers should be there to participate. I think he's talking to us that we should have invited young farmers to this, bring them into this conversation as well.
Let's go.
This one says, Comrade Adejumobi Hamza from Lagos, how can small farmers derive from the budget of the federal government? And this one says, I appreciate all that is being discussed this time about agribusiness. I wish to state that agribusiness, whatever the initiatives and involvement of the government in it, it will hardly promote food security and sustainable if the header farmer crisis in our localities is not put to check in Nigeria. This crisis had forced some local farmers left agribusiness for other businesses. What is government doing in this direction? This is from Dr. Tanimu Osu from Nasarawa State.
Okay, I have some questions here, some contributions here from Dr. Abiola Olagunju Oluwanike. Said, I'm really thrilled at the discussion on agribusiness this morning. My addition to all of this is that the farmers at the grassroots must be carried along. 70% of our food comes from them. The world is also now a global village, so also should farming be. There should be helplines just as we have for banking and others where farmers can easily run to send their problems, get information and be on the same page. I've seen it happen in Ghana. Another one said, good morning Nigeria. Quality seed is the primary and critical input for profitable farming. Seed companies in Nigeria have significantly contributed to enhancing food security in Nigeria through quantum leap in the quality of seeds produced. Quality. Large quantity of the seeds, rice, maize, soybeans are in the warehouse waiting for farmers to buy. What do you think will happen to these seeds if the government imports 10 100,000 tons of rice into the country. That's coming from Olonilua Femi. Another one said, good morning to all presenters and all the resource persons. The farming season just begins now. The farming inputs are not easily accessible for the farmers to be able to cultivate large hectares of land. Also, the insecurity that is ravaging most of the states, how can these farmers be able to go to farm? Most people are even afraid to take loan because you're not even sure of harvesting the crops after going through a difficult time, and someone will ask you to pay ransom before you harvest your crops. I'm Samuel Luca from Jos, but residing in Abuja. Another one said, good morning, panelists. You have not talked about the access to land and labor availability and payment for labor. That's from Barrister Wabugo Odo.
Maybe we should, before architect will respond, maybe we should go to Uyo and get the response of Professor Akpan, then we'll come back to the studio.
Yes, thank you once again. A lot of questions have been asked and raised over there, all over the country. But all I could say is that we need to be intentional about agricultural production and productivity, because we all eat to live and we live to eat. And then to be able to solve most of those issues that have been raised, we need to have at least agricultural hubs, agricultural hubs in most of the in all the geopolitical zones, or even all the states, so that it could also help to, solve most of those challenges that the farmers do have. And when we talked about water alone, water cannot, be a standalone in agriculture, but we need water for even the animals and then the crops that we cultivate. But the funniest thing is that, in Nigeria, in the northern part, they have a long dry season, dry spell, and then in the north, in particular, they depend mostly on irrigation farming, agriculture, because of a few months of rain. But in the southern part, they're also depending on rain-fed agriculture. So I think agricultural production and productivity has to be, location specific when we are trying to tackle those challenges. So like I rightly said, we need to be intentional about all the approaches and then the strategies we need to put in place to be able to make agribusiness policy work in Nigeria. And like we rightly said, since it is all encompassing, these are the rules, that are being put in place and the strategies that are being put in place by governments and organizations and even the farmers to be sure that food is available in the country. So, and I also plead that the federal government should have a dedicated budget. Everybody, irrespective of the area of specialty in Nigeria, needs food to eat. So they should be intentional about food production. That's my take for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Edna. Let's now come back to Architect Kabir. Your responses to some of those questions.
Well, I think all the questions are very, very apt. And of course, all of them, when properly answered and transparently addressed, they make for good agribusiness. You cannot have sustainable agribusiness if you have insecurity that is against productivity in general. You will not be able to process, to be able to go to the market and get money if all these factors are not working. So what we must do is, the issue in Nigeria's economic growth is work in progress. And then most of these issues cannot be left to tomorrow. These are things that should have been addressed yesterday. But we will have to do them contiguously. You have to ensure security. You have to ensure mechanization. You have to be able to produce the year round. And thereby, you must amplify irrigation. You cannot depend on rain-fed agriculture and be prosperous. Sometimes, it's very, very easy for anybody to say, well, we work 2 months, we work the land for 2 months, and the rest of the time we are resting. What about economic losses during that time? we must be able to have data. We must be able to assess and reappraise and get the true situation, not fairy tale. You cannot plan when you do not have sufficient data and details.
Okay.
And you don't progress when you don't know what to do and what issues to address. I had always said, the issue of food security in Nigeria, for instance, since we have 6 geopolitical zones, and we know what is staple in all these geopolitical zones, first, we begin with getting sufficiency in those staples in those various regions. Whatever is over what is required comes to the market and goes to the storages. You strategically store these things to cushion inflation. You know, inflation is a very, very important factor in Nigeria's economy. We must also address more than anything food inflation, because it is food that is sine qua non to productivity. You cannot even produce well, even if you have a 200 horsepower tractor with GPS. You will not be able to move it if you are hungry. So everybody needs food. So you must put a very high premium on food security. And food security will come about to many people, either through doing it directly or through being players or stakeholders in agribusiness. So the whole issue is, first, agree that agriculture provides the opportunity for Nigeria to be prosperous. It also provides the opportunity for a household to have sufficiency in everything. And the whole nation will grow from a successful agribusiness or agricultural productivity. Now, I will give you the example of China. Many years ago, we used to call Russia and China iron cutting countries.
Yeah.
But the population of China is over 1 billion. And nobody is saying that they have empirical information that there is hunger in China. What did they do? They looked at all these issues, solved them, be very practical about them, avoid or not tolerate corruption, ensure transparency, and everything is working there. Many, many people want to go to China to buy things to use here. Most of the things that you are talking about, mechanization and all the equipment in irrigation and all that, you go to China, you get exactly what you want, the quality that you want. And that is why when, for instance, many years ago, when the Federal Ministry of Agriculture opened its doors for us as AFAN to come and buy equipment, we looked at the equipment they had, we went to the market, the prices that they gave was even higher than what was in the market, and the quality was less than what obtained in other places, because the people who went there as contractors ordered the quality that would give them the best profit. So if there is government intervention, it should give and obtain the best quality to the people who will work, and that's something that is going to be there for a very long time. If you give me an equipment that will last 1 year, the next year I will come looking for another equipment.
Yeah.
You give a person an equipment that will last for 20, 30 years. They will produce optimally, and then they will be able to even replace that equipment on their own. They will not come back to you to do that. And then again, we should not look at the issue of agriculture as the issue of the federal government of Nigeria. No. Agriculture really takes place in the rural areas. Agriculture all over the world is a rural vocation.
Okay.
If you go to the Midlands in England, for instance, this is our colonial master. Go from Paddington Station up to Manchester, you see farms, you see animals, you see animals grazing and all that. They are not in central London. So if you come to Abuja here with a guy like me and say that you have a farm in Abuja, where is the farm? Show us what you do here. What happens is people should go to the rural areas, and the governors have to be more serious on agriculture than the federal government. I mean, recently I was just talking with my friend here who works with the Governors Forum or whatever, and I said, I gave and advise through ACF to the northern governors, because everything that is in the public domain is showing that there are a lot of stresses and turbulences in northern Nigeria. There are many people who are jobless, many people who go hungry and all that. I said, what this government has done in allocations is so much that every governor in northern Nigeria, for instance, can bring out 3 billion naira and put it in a pool for the 19 governors and address the basic needs of agricultural production now. And in 2025, you can see the difference. You can measure it, you can see it if everyone coalesces with every other person to do this thing seriously.
Collectively.
So the thing is that we don't sit here in NTA and talk about the federal government has not done this. No. In fact, for agriculture, we should talk more. We should dwell more on what the subnationals should do to agriculture.
Okay.
The federal government is supposed to, of course, create the enabling environment because it has all the forces to ensure everything that we have been talking about, zero corruption, security, and all that. So as far as we are concerned, the policy now on agribusiness should be held very well and implemented very well, and people should be encouraged to take part in it from the private sector more than from the government.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And let me come to Professor Gambo now. In the deployment of the NAPM, in each state and across the country, we will also respond to the text messages that came in. What should be the top priorities?
Okay, now there is something that is very significant that was raised, somebody talking about youth inclusiveness into agriculture. Last week I was invited for a program, inauguration of youth in agriculture. It was organized by Action Aid, GIZ, and the Senate Committee on Agricultural Productivity. In fact, Senator Salim Mustafa, who is the chairman of the Senate Committee, was there. And once we inaugurated the youth, they came from across the country. You could see them across the country. And I think I did not see anybody that is above 25. But they've already formed themselves into a formidable force. And the major outline of what happened was, when the senator was talking, he said he has moved a motion for a bill to establish 1 trillion naira for youths in agriculture, and he promised, is on record, that the bill is going to pass through second reading, and he said by September that 1 trillion will be available just for youths inclusiveness into agriculture. And I think that is a very good news. Then secondly, talking about security, within the last 2 weeks also, the federal government established the forest guards policy. So that one is a very good one, whereby now you train the people and then they go protecting the forest, making sure that farmers are doing their work very well, forcing those that are disturbing the peace to be out of the forest, etc. And I think that's also a very good move. This all will help in actualization of the agribusiness plan. But then, Juma, your question is very important to the whole agribusiness plan. Now, once we start, we want a situation whereby you look at the comparative advantage of all the 774 local governments in agricultural activities. Every local government has something peculiar, and every state has something peculiar. So the emphasis now, if your local government has something peculiar to that particular local government, the emphasis should be keep producing that particular product. Then you move to the other local government. One is maize, the other one is yam, the other one is rice. Give them the necessary machinery and then let them keep producing, and that's going to solve plenty of problems.
That will solve plenty of problems. Professor Abba Gambo, Department of Crop Production, University of Maiduguri. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. And we still believe that there will be more time in future for us to talk more on this initiative. Thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Also, we want to thank Dr. Emeka Okengu, Agricultural and Development Economist. Thank you,
Pleasure.
Doc.
Pleasure.
always obliging us. And in the studio also is Architect Kabil Ibrahim, President, Nigeria Agribusiness Group, and AFAN President. Thank you, Architect turned farmer.
Thank you. Thank you.
And want to also acknowledge Professor Edna Augustine Akpan, Professor of Crop Science, Faculty of Agriculture, Akwa Ibom State. Thank you, Prof, for your contribution. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I am Juma Yusuf. Do have a wonderful day ahead. Thanks for watching.